First tonight, the legal and moral questions raised by a widely publicized case of medically assisted suicide. On Monday, a retired doctor and euthanasia advocate used a machine he invented to help a 54-year-old woman take her life. The woman, Janet Adkins of Portland, Oregon, was diagnosed as having Alzheimer's disease and wanted to end her life. Her husband spoke of that decision.
I heard a decision that had been made some time ago. The boys were all familiar with it, and we all knew what she wanted to do.
Mrs. Adkins traveled to Michigan, where Dr. Jack Kevorkian, a retired pathologist, connected her to his invention, a device that first releases a drug causing unconsciousness and then a lethal dose of potassium chloride.
And this stops the heart as soon as it reaches it. So he has a heart attack in deep coma, which is like dying in your sleep.
Mrs. Adkins' suicide took place in Kevorkian's van in a local park. The doctor then called the police to report the death. They're now determining whether to press criminal charges against him. Dr. Kevorkian had this reaction to the possibility of being prosecuted.
If I'm a criminal, then, you can look at me and say, you're a criminal, then throw me in jail. But keep me there, because if I get out, I'll do it again. I want this to be a medical service that's controlled. It isn't now. It's all hit or miss. Lay people are shooting each other and suffocating each other and poisoning each other and drowning each other. That's silly. How can doctors stand by and watch that?
We're joined now by Dr. Kevorkian, who is in Detroit. Doctor, you've been listening to this. I don't know whether you heard all of it, but basically all three doctors say that in this case, from what they understand of it, it was difficult to understand how you could have correctly diagnosed the condition and given Mrs. Adkins the medical treatment she deserved. Can you respond to that?
Well, I relied on the medical reports that were submitted to me that they sent from Oregon, in which the diagnosis was 90% sure Alzheimer's. Of course, that's a clinical diagnosis. And then I called her own physician, who was supervising her last experimental treatment course with THA, and he verified everything they said, and everything was in the records. And then when I met her personally, I could detect very clearly. I spent all day Saturday and most of Saturday evening and afternoon and evening with her and her husband and best friend. And from what I could see, she was having a terrible loss of memory, having trouble spelling, couldn't even print her own initials without great help, had trouble reading because of the memory loss, but she was rational, knew where she was, knew who I was, knew the time and place. And I concluded then that I had to go along with her wishes based on what I could see and determine.
Let's just give you an opportunity to explain your own rationale in your own words for assisting her in this suicide. What do you hope to accomplish with this clearly demonstration case?
Well, I want to show that I want to demonstrate my cardinal rule in ethics, which is personal autonomy. And the patient has a desire and a wish to end his life. It's up to a physician with his medical expertise, combined with logic and common sense, and a totally free mind to evaluate whether this person's desire and wish is medically justifiable. And if it is, then I think it's a physician's duty to offer that option to the patient. It's entirely autonomy, and that's what I wanted to demonstrate. And I wanted to demonstrate also that there's a great need for it in this country, and that the medical profession is responsible for a great lack of responsibility, and in that lack of responsibility has created much of the ethical dilemma in this field.